The artillery forward observers played a decisive part in the successes of German infantry and panzer units during World War II. The forward observer was considered the eye of the artillery. In most cases, the battery commander acted in this role, closely following the combat troops to be supported. It was important to have a commanding view over the main battle line into the depth of the enemy position and good camouflage to avoid being spotted. In the attack, he went along with the infantry, accompanied by a radio operator. If the attack was stopped, the observer called for fire on enemy points of resistance and carried the infantry on to the next assault. In static warfare, the observer ordered destructive fire against the enemy and covering fire to aid his own troops. He also directed fire against enemy infantry who were about to attack or actually attacking. The most vital tool of the forward observer was the Scherenfernrohr or Scissor telescope. It was a binocular telescope in which the two lenses were as far apart as possible due to the scissor or V-shaped construction and were a few decimeters above the observer's head. This hybrid between binoculars and the periscope enabled the observer to remain safely concealed with only objective lens visible to the enemy. The German army used it for general observation and for artillery fire observation and direction. To aid infantry and artillery observers, the Scherenfernrohr was used in conjunction with a tripod leg. It normally came with accessories such as the azimuth mount and tripod, carrying case and other items such as a trench mount, which allowed the mount to be embedded in wood or the ground. It is interesting to note that the post-war West German Bundeswehr didn't use the device at all, but East Germany's Volksarmee and other Warsaw Pact countries, including the Soviet Union, continued to do it long after the war ended. Of course, the panzer divisions also had forward observers. They used a special vehicle to accompany the attacking armored battalions. This vehicle was the Sonderkraftfahrzeug, so Special Purpose Vehicle 250/5 Leichter Beobachtungspanzerwagen or Light Armored Observation Vehicle. It was basically a variant on the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 250 armored half-track. In the front, the binocular was mounted on a rotating pivot. There was one jump seat for the radio operator. The commander sat in a seat on the left immediately behind the binocular stand. The vehicle was equipped with radio sets to communicate both with the self-propelled and static artillery batteries. A defensive machine gun could also be mounted in front of the vehicle. The first mention of this version is dated in July of 1942 and it was produced until October of 1944. The number of built pieces is unknown. A few examples from the Eastern Front will illustrate the vital role of the forward observers. In one instance, a German battalion was attacking a Soviet objective at a place where there was a churchyard in close proximity to the rear. The attack was gaining ground very slowly, impeded by stubborn defense and by poor observation for the German artillery. Finally, a forward observer succeeded in the face of enemy fire in reaching an observation position located at the flank, whence he could observe the churchyard. The signal troops, working fast, established communication in a very short time with the battery, which was then able to deliver well-placed fire. The opponent was so pinned down that the attack regained its impetus. In a short time, both the village and the churchyard were captured. In August of 1941, a forward observer went into no man's land with a scout squad. 3 kilometers in front of the German lines he found a hideout and for 9 hours observed the Russian position from so short a distance that no detail could be missed. He could look into each pit dug for protection against tanks and could almost count the number of occupants in each. The next morning the assault group attacked at the appointed time. The radio of the forward observer had scarcely given the first order of command when the answers roared from 3 batteries. After a short pause, a powerful concentration of fire was placed on the left-hand sector of the enemy positions, only to move in another instant 100 yards to the right on a zigzag trench net. On the left, where the dust clouds from the burst were slowly settling, the hand grenades of the assault troops were already exploding. With incredible speed, the trenches were mopped up, and always throughout the action, a concentrated fire of 12 guns moved just before the assault group from right to left. About 500 meters of the Russian position was overrun in this way. With the mission accomplished, the assault group withdrew from the Russian position, while the forward artillery observer placed his fire to cover the withdrawal. Numerous prisoners and weapons were brought in without any losses suffered by the German units. In this case too, the service of the forward observer was no minor factor. However, before the battalion had organized itself for defense, the Russians made a counterattack in heavy force, supported by 18 tanks and designed to recover the locality. Fortunately, the second battery, which had been attached to the battalion, had moved its position and was ready for action, having established communications with the forward observer. Gun after gun fired its barrage into massed ranks of the Russian infantry following the tanks. Even the tanks hesitated and then gave up the attack. The Russian attack was repeated several times in very strong force, and every time was stopped by the barrage ordered and directed by the forward observer. Bodies of the Russians and ruined tanks covered the field at the evening, and the battalion officers thanked the battery commander, assuring him that the village would have fallen had it not been for the artillery support and the brave conduct of the forward observer.